Okay.
Well, it just depends. The
It does
power
depend.
lies at those around the table.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
Lucy has one. You've been. Okay, well, I'll read it. I'll just give it back to Chris or she wants to read it. So this is.
Wanna come see Monty?
I don't have time right now. It's 5:59.
All right.
So after the meeting?
Take someone, because they're gonna go by 7 and, yeah.
See that, so you give it back to me. You're pulling it right. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I call tonight's meeting, May 5th, to order. Will you all please join the board in saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk Clark, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Bowen,
Present.
trustee Cascarella,
Present.
trustee Lyman,
Present.
trustee Mohica. Treasurer Fedowa.
Here.
Clerk Clark is present, supervisor Brewer. You have quorum.
Thank you, Clerk Clark. Is there a motion for trustee Mohica's absence?
I move to excuse her absence.
Support, sorry.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That motion passes. We are now on to the agenda. Is there any additions or changes to the agenda? If not, I will receive a motion.
Look to support the agenda as presented.
Support.
Thank you. It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, that motion passes. And let's see here, we're moving right down.
Did
We-
you ask for a yes vote?
Is there a yes vote? Did I
She
say?
did not.
Oh,
You have to
okay.
ask for a yes vote. And then.
Is there a motion?
Yeah,
I mean,
there is a
yes.
motion and a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes now.
Correct.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that, I'm a little jet lagged. All right, we are down to public comment. Is there anyone that would love to come and speak? You don't have to love to, but you can come and speak. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name for us.
Hi, my name is April Bryan and I live at 3343 Wardell Road. The first time we spoke with you about our concerns with the short-term rental was a call in June of last year. And a formal letter was written in August. And since then, we've come to you and we've participated in some of these meetings and you've heard what we've had to say. There seems to be some question about not understanding what the difference between public and private would be. And I just want to quickly say that our private road we have a shared interest. It is maintained by the residents that live there. We get a wheelbarrow out and we're filling in the potholes with the stone ourselves. If the road washes out, we have to call and pay for the contractor to fix it. There's no lighting. It's very dark out there. There's no wayfinding to show somebody where they need to go. And among those differences, it's hard for emergency vehicles to get back there. We don't even have, Granger won't even provide garbage disposal services out there because of the condition of the road. It's one lane, you can't go two ways. There's only one car that can go down it at a time. And I support all the work that you guys have put into and Peter has put into developing the ordinance. And I support that for private roads that we have to have agreement with the neighbors, especially if there's an easement that you have to traverse and go through somebody's property to get access to yours. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you for your attention on this. And I'm hoping that we have a positive outcome and that we can move on from this subject. Thank you.
Thank you, April. Is there anyone else? Please come on up and state your name and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, I'm David Prout. I'm with the Aspen Manor HOA president. And we had Pioneer come in and install fiber optics. They left a mess. I communicated with them. They come back and they put 6 inches of sod in and sparsely sprinkled seed on there. Mine, they missed most of it. And so I talked to KBB Communications and they said they would try to rectify the situation, but it wasn't their problem. It was their contractor. So a lot of the modus operandi for most of them right now is that they blame somebody else. You know, it's the contractor's fault. I said, well, you have hired them. Why don't you tell them to replace the sod? We have $500,000 homes in there and some are more, and it's devaluing our property. It's causing some very hard feelings about Pioneer. People want to use their service, their fiber optics. So I'd like to know what we can do to rectify the situation here and get our lawns back. You know, if you tear up somebody's lawn, you should put sod back in. We have, my lawn is irrigated. I spend $1,000 a year probably spraying my trees and everything else. And the kids can buy and pick the cherries in the front yard and stuff like that. And it's just not right for them to obfuscate their responsibilities and for them not to return it to its present form. So, thank you.
Thank you. Manager Reed, is that something that you can call that company? Because I think you've done that before. I know you have for
Yeah, if you
other.
could just get with our
residents.
office with your address and number, and we can look into that further.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks coming up.
Hello,
Hello.
I'm back. This is a private road issue again. I'm a Wardell Road resident.
Please state your name. for the record.
Luann Bremer,
Thank you.
and I've been here a couple, 3 times too. Well, hopefully some of you, if not all of you, got to come back and see our space. It's almost laughable to consider it a road. Before I pull out of my driveway, I look to see if anybody else is pulling out of their driveway coming my direction. Because you can't go like this on a little space. So, and we maintain, like April said, we maintain it ourselves. We drag it, we pay for the gravel, we do everything else. Nobody does anything for us, you know. And it's just, in the dark. We had an issue the other night. Somebody had to come back with an ambulance. And we had people out with their vehicles lighting the way so that they could find their way to the right space to take care of it. And there's not room for a fire truck. Hopefully they don't send a big engine. But anyway, hopefully we can take care of this whole mess because it was not pleasant. Fortunately, it's not that way currently, and we hope it stays that way. Thank you for your time, and we appreciate your time and help.
Thank you, Luann.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. I'm Scott House from 4712 Whitetail Lane. I'm here to talk about the short-term rental ordinance. I spoke here on the 21st. Just want to reiterate some facts. The team meets on Wardell have been grinding through this for over a year. A private road's different from a public road. There's no two situations are the same. I know last time the HOA was brought up, but you think about the financial burden of HOA. At the minimum bare bones could be $2,000, high end could be $10,000. There's annual filing fees, there's administration, there's costs, there's added costs. So you'd be asking Luann to pay more for less versus this ordinance provides a unique solution for a unique scenario. This is not a situation that's widespread. Private road, the limitation of HOAs on a private road builds good neighbors and good laws help to do this. I think this is a very eloquent solution that you presented. Well, I thank you for your consideration and your thoughtfulness in bringing this solution. I hope that you support this and I think it will bring peace to this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Are there any other public comments?
Hello, Delta Township Board. My name is Bobby Bryan. I live at 3343 Wardell Road. And I do, along with all the concerns that have already been talked about with the short-term rentals on the private road, I do have concerns as well that private road does drive right through our property. I have liability concerns in addition to everything else that was brought up. And one other incident we had a couple of weeks ago, I think we touched base on it a little bit last time we were here. But the new resident that moved into that short-term rental that bought and sold the house, and now we have new residents there. Unfortunately, one of the new homeowners fell down the stairs and was injured pretty seriously. We went over to help. We called 911. When we were on the phone with 911, they were not really sure how to get to where we were. They asked if we could drive out to the main part of Wardell Road in our vehicle to put our flashers on so they could follow us in, which we did. And we got everybody in there. And then they realized they needed more support and we weren't able to help. Obviously, we weren't allowed to do that. And so they're going to call in another truck. And I said, you might not want to call on a fire truck because, you know, they're going to have a hard time getting out. And they agreed. And, you know, I did the same thing, went out and waited for the next vehicle to come down. It was an SUV. So they had more assistance and were able to help with the situation. But that's, I mean, when we had the short-term rentals a year ago, when it was constant parties in and out, all the traffic, all the people, it's just going to get worse. And I think that as far as being into to respond to any kind of emergency is a great concern, as well as a liability that is on our property as people wander around and get into mischief and have a good time. And you have the river right there as well. And that's, you know, how many cars have gone into the river as of late off Jolly Road. We don't want that to turn in same problem on Wardell Road. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you. Are there any other speakers?
David Howell, 9487 Guinea Road. Sorry I missed the last meeting, but we had a mare that was having a foal at the time, so passed up coming to the meeting. And I'm sad that I missed it because I wanted to talk about Anderson Park. And Anderson Park, of course, is on Wardell Road, and it's the most pristine park in all of Delta Township. And yet it's the most ignored in terms of services, facilities. There's no restroom, you know, there's, as I said, there's barely a road in there. But I pulled up the agreement between the township and the Mid-Michigan Mountain Biking Association. And it says, it talks in here about the property is dedicated to outdoor recreation and encumbered by certain deed covenants and restrictions. I wondered if anybody, you know, took a look at those covenants and restrictions, because I doubt that there's something in there, you know, that talks about turning it into a park for mountain bikers. In that agreement, it also says that the trails and pathways will be used for public recreation, such as hiking and non-motorized mountain biking. That's impossible. The two of them are incompatible. You cannot be out there on a path when they're mountain biking, because they're doing speed trials. They're out there for exercise. They're trying to, you know, get in a good time and so on. It also says the park and all its facilities shall remain accessible to the general public during such use. Again, that's incompatible. Trails shall be designated and marked as multi-use, permitting and encouraging pedestrian use of routes in the opposing direction of those biking. Now that the park is open until 10 p.m., that's a dangerous situation if anybody is out there on one of the paths walking into these, the incoming bikes. And then finally, the township entered into an agreement with MMMBA and agreed that they're an independent contractor now for the township. And it says MMBA and its personnel are and shall be considered independent contractors of Delta Township. So essentially, you know, my plain English reading of it is that Anderson Nature Park has been, you know, turned over to the MMMBA, and it's now a mountain biking park. And again, you know, mountain biking is incompatible with people out there trying to bird watch, just trying to go for a walk. If they have their families out there with small children. And to this effect, MMBA has to maintain commercial,
Can you wrap it up for us, please?
Yep.
Your 3 minutes are up.
they also have to maintain commercial general liability insurance with policy limits of not less than $1 million per occurrence and 2 million in the aggregate. So right there, that's kind of a tacit agreement, that there are some inherent dangers out there. And anyway, I'm disappointed that the township entered, into this agreement with MMMBA. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Any other speakers? Seeing none, we will move down the agenda to passage of ordinances. And I believe that's going to be on Peter, who's going to come up and talk to us about the first one, which is the short-term rental.
Yep, so last saw this item at your April 21 meeting. It was approved at that time for introduction. Since that time, we did publish the ad, or publish the notice for this for introduction. So if it's approved tonight, that gets published again, it becomes local law. If the ordinance changes tonight, then we would go back through that process. We would reintroduce it at your next meeting or a future meeting with new language and go through the process again. So the ordinance is in the same form as it's been. Now, I think the date on it is from March. It's March 17th, 2025. Please let me know if you have any questions about the content of the ordinance or the process.
Okay. Is there a motion before we go into discussion? Motion?
I move that the Delta Township Board approve for final adoption an amendment to Chapter 8 Buildings and Building Regulations of the Code of Ordinances by adding Article 7 Short-Term Rentals and direct the Township Clerk to publish the ordinance in a local newspaper.
Thank you, Trustee Bowen. Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Not hearing any discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, that motion, I believe, passes.
It does.
Thank you. Peter, don't go anywhere. Are you up for the next one? Where's that? I didn't look. Aaron, okay. Is Aaron here? There she is. All right, Aaron, you are up to talk about the amendment bike use in parks.
Yeah, I'm filling in for Marcus, so if you have any questions about what's being proposed, as discussed last meeting at the introduction, this is an ordinance to amend our section on biking in the parks and paths. Our current ordinance also references roadways, which limits the use of bikes, the way our current ordinance is written, from sunrise to, or from sunset to sunrise, that you cannot, it has a prohibition on roadways, which is not real practical. People use bikes at all times of day to get to and from work and things like that. So striking those references to roadways and clarifying what we mean by paths is the crux of the ordinance update. So similar to previous, we're on the second phase to adopt and put it in the local newspaper.
Is there a motion? Trustee Cascarilla?
I move that the Delta Township Board adopt amendments to Chapter 30 Parks and Recreation of the Delta Township Code of Ordinance. The Township Clerk is hereby directed to advertise this adoption in the local newspaper with a proposed ordinance amendment taking effect upon publication.
Is there support? Support. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Not seeing any discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Now we are down to the consent agenda. What is the pleasure of the board for the consent agenda? Trustee Bowen,
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
it has been moved. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Trustee Lyman. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? No, excuse me, we're gonna do a roll call on that.
Trustee Bowen,
Yes.
trustee Lyman,
Yes.
trustee Mohica, trustee Cascarilla,
Yes.
treasurer Fedewa.
Yes.
Clerk Clark is yes, supervisor Burr,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. That motion carries. We are now down to new items of business. And the first is the administration building asphalt parking lot replacement. Will that be you, Manager Reed, or for that one?
Yes, Supervisor, I can speak to that. This is a project to repave our parking lot at this building on both the west and the east side. So this is a project that we've needed to do for a couple of years. We have several failing parts of the asphalt. But we pushed this off as we asked the road commission to do for Administration Drive, to get through our project across the street. We had $300,000 budgeted. As you can see, we solicited several bids, with the lowest one being Capital Asphalt, which we feel comfortable with, as they did the work across the street for the public safety facility. As I mentioned, there will be some concrete work also done by a different contractor to fix some curb areas and around our catch basins in the parking lot where we have some drainage issues. And so with that, I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Before we do that, is there a motion? Anybody want to move it?
I move that the Delta Township Board accept the bid from Capital Asphalt for the Delta Township Administration Building Asphalt Parking Lot Replacement Project in the amount of $161,466.35, and that the township manager be authorized and directed to execute the contract documents for the aforementioned project.
Thank you, trustee Bowen. Is there support? Support. It's been supported by trustee Lyman. Thank you. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Treasurer Fedowa?
Yeah, Manager Reed, Michigan Pavement came in. Excuse me, I take that back. I read the problems you had with bees, prep and asphalt ink, so I'm comfortable with the recommendation of Capital Asphalt. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Let me see, we're back to my agenda here. Our second item of new business is the ECRC agreement for improvements to Administration Drive and Davenport Drive. Manager Reed.
Yes, Supervisor Brewer. This was a request from the Eden County Road Commission. So as you remember, we pushed back the project in the local road millage on Administration Drive for a couple of years again to get through this project. And looking at the road and the amount of truck traffic that we receive on that road from MDOT and the fire department, the road commission contacted us about doing an additional lift on that road to mill down further, which the recommendation is it would make a better roadway. But the local millage does not cover that entire amount, so they were asking for some cost sharing, which prior to the local road millage, almost all the local roads were cost sharing. The millage helped. So the township has not had to share in any of those costs. If it was our will not to share in those costs, so they would just do a 2-inch mill and resurface. So our recommendation is for the amount of money and the amount of traffic that roadway gets, that we take their suggestion and do a better project.
Before we go into discussion, is there a motion? Trustee Cascarella.
I move that the Delta Township Board approve the agreement for improvements to Administration Drive and Davenport Drive for $10,500, and that the supervisor and clerk be approved and directed to sign the agreement on behalf of the township.
Is there support?
Support.
It has been moved and supported. Any discussion?
A pretty good deal, I think.
Yeah, and that road has been horrible. It's on my list every year to get it repaired. So I'm glad that they're looking for solutions to maybe not have to repair it as often. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. All right, I think we're down to the manager report.
Thank you. I do not have much to report, other than our utilities, department will be spreading biosolids, likely starting May 12th now. Is that to Rick? So, that's on a farm north of the township. So if you happen to receive a call or wire.
Is that where
Delta-
it's more smelly?
Occasionally we'll get calls of why is there a Delta truck, outside of town? That'll be the reason. A piece of good news, we did receive a small grant from the Delmac Foundation, for a bike rack and a bike fix-it kit for the Colt, Elementary, which will be our senior center. So, there'll be a nice addition, to that project. So appreciate our Parks Department's work on that grant. And then last but not least is just remember we have the special election tomorrow. So Clerk Clark and her folks will be busy.
Oh, is there anything you want to add to that, Clerk Clark, about tomorrow?
Don't call me till after 8:45.
But vote,
We
please,
are-
everyone vote.
We have the city of Lansing voters that live in Eaton County were wrapped into Delta Township's voter base. And so the city has 5 drop boxes that they must pick up from at 8 p.m. and then get the ballots to us. So we don't expect them until 8:20 to 8:25. So we'll have to scan them in, verify signatures, ballots, and then get them up to the AB counting board. So
You have a long day ahead of you tomorrow.
we always do.
Thank you so much for doing that. Thank you. Anything else, Manager?
Nope, happy to answer any
Is
questions.
there any questions of Manager Reed? No. Excellent. Are there any reports from board members on any meetings you may have attended?
No.
Okay, you guys are just moving this right along. All right, so now we're down to Committee of the Whole, and we love these annual reports, and this one is on Delta Patrol. So come on down, Preston.
A little banged up, so I brought my household back there, so. All right, well, for anyone who doesn't know me, I am Preston Dahlgren. I'm the lieutenant for the sheriff's office in charge of Delta Patrol. I'd say 2024 was probably a bit of a unique year with the substation and the move and trying to still maintain services appropriately, but I think we got through it pretty well. So let's get this rolling. So you'll see I've got 6 sergeants up here, but we don't have 6 on our official staff. These are just the sergeants that contributed in 2024. So we have 4 that are assigned specific shifts. Sergeant Popa and Barber specifically helped with Delta shifts throughout 2024. Sergeant Barber, he runs our AVI and is one of our special response team members. Sergeant Popa, he does our drones and is on SRT as well. Sergeant Walter, he's on our dive team, which is Tri-County area dive team. He's also on SRT. Sergeant Stopchinski runs our OHSP grants that helps us with traffic enforcement. Sergeant Tietzer runs our FTO program and he's been quite busy. He's also our SRT assistant commander. And then Sergeant Turner runs our K9s and there's kind of a theme. He's also on SRT. So the handsome gentleman on the left is me. The other guy, that is Detective Lieutenant Campbell. He is in charge of all of our detectives. He assumed that role just last year and is really hitting his stride with that. He oversees 4 of our detectives up here and we have currently just 1 in the county right now. This is a list of what we have for new hires for 2024. So the first 4 are the ones that are now on their own. We ran them through the academy and the FTO process all of last year. The ones that say FTO are set to be off, I believe, May 17th, if all goes well, so that's 10. So a very busy process. To put that in perspective, we only have 10 field training officers. So to try to rotate these all around, they have to go through 4 6-week phases. So our deputies and even our sergeants have been taking these kids and training them. So they've been passengers for a very long time and are itching to get their driver's seat back.
Did you say they were passengers?
Mostly. So as a field training officer, you start out showing them the ropes, you know, they're only expected to do 0 to 25% of the work, and then that increases as their experience increases. So eventually they get booted to the passenger seat. So our total calls for service are clearly up significantly over the last 3 years. I imagine they're only going to continue to rise, and we'll kind of go into more specifics. And we use this just to give us an idea on where to focus a lot of our patrol or where maybe some of our issues are.
Quick question, if I may, only because you just went back a couple years, but you know, that kind of gets us just outside of the pandemic, and I know things were different during that time. Is this like getting to more levelized
Like
numbers
2018,
prior to the pandemic, or are we exceeding that?
both. I
Okay.
mean, I would say that 16 range is about normal, what it used to be. And so, I mean, we're only going up, and we're still doing this with less numbers right now. So by weekday, we're pretty even across the board. Sundays, as you could imagine, are a little slower, thankfully. Time of day, noon to 6, that seems to be like our busy time. As a result, because we're short, we implemented a 2 to 2 shift. It's just one relief shift that helps pick up the calls and carry it. So we typically break everything down in 3 categories, and I'll show you kind of what we have for specifics, but our violent crimes are our more serious ones, but thankfully they're quite a bit lower. This doesn't add up obviously to our 18,000 calls, but this just breaks down kind of the major calls. So this is, I think, just over 7,000 of the total calls.
Was this for last year?
Yes. So domestic assault, for our violent crimes are our more serious ones. We did have a homicide early last year of a 6-year-old. Not much I can comment on that, but we do have a suspect that's in custody. I'm sure you've all read the news on that, but that's coded differently under this. Sometimes when we get to a call, it's initially aired as maybe a check well-being. And if it doesn't get changed specifically in our CAD system, it'll read differently. So sometimes it's a little difficult to get all the numbers, but we do have one homicide in there for 24.
Question on the fight and physical altercations. Are there hotspots for those in the township?
Sometimes, wherever there's a gathering, a party, you know, something that has alcohol involved.
I mean,
Usually
bars.
You know, I'd say last year, not even last year, maybe 23, Zap Zone being new was a bit of a hot spot, but we worked with them pretty well, I think, and that's gone down. So we don't have like a very distinct spot that's been a regular problem.
Okay.
So nonviolent. Our retail frauds, thefts at stores kind of run away with this one. That's the biggest one we go to, I'd say. Again, there's some in here that are coded a little differently. Operating while impaired is actually higher than that number because we could have a traffic stop that stems into a further investigation and it's maybe still stays coded as a traffic stop. So we're probably a little higher than that. And then disorderly persons, that's just a wide array of issues, sometimes unfounded, but There's only certain ways we can code things. One thing that popped out, compared to last year, I don't know the exact number, but overdoses are down quite a bit. Some of those could be wrapped into EMS assist. But as far as on our end, it seems like they have kind of trended downhill a little bit. Again, this is just time of day for all three different categories. Nothing really pops out with the violent crime. A little bit later in the day, it goes up. As you can imagine, between 2 and 5 o'clock, not a whole lot going on.
Are your staffing levels then, in accordance to these, do you have more during your peak times a day and less during the?
No, because we have, 4, a sergeant and a relief. So if somebody's off, if we maybe go too heavy on one end and too light on the other, if somebody goes to light duty or gets injured, or is off for any amount of time, then we can't cover like our minimum coverage. So we try to keep it as even as possible. And then with the relief, that's been helping. So a day relief and a night relief, we get to plan a little bit ahead, and that helps gap that a little bit. Allows others to get to training as well.
Okay.
By month, as you could expect, summer's a little bit busier for our miscellaneous. Violent is pretty steady all across the board. And as it gets colder, February, most of our calls kind of drop a little bit. This is a different kind of map, but it helps us kind of track things. So the darker blue means it's more frequent. So violent crimes are steady on the weekends pretty much throughout the year. March through July, things get a little more steady throughout the entire week. So this is just another little map we use or chart to be able to read, where our most frequent issues are.
What's so special about Wednesdays?
Nobody said anything yet. I don't know. Non-violent, nothing really stands out here other than, again, Wednesdays. I don't know. Wednesday into Thursday. So. Miscellaneous, I think the little peak we have there in July might be related to our fireworks. We have our miscellaneous fireworks calls. Everybody's upset about that. So that's the only one that really sticks out to me, and the only thing I can think of where that would be maybe a little more prevalent. So we break the township down by districts, and I'll show you on a map on the next slide. We have 4 districts. We like to have 1 car for each district. They are primarily responsible for each call within that district. If they're going to the jail or unavailable, the call will either hold or somebody from a different district will up for that call and take it depending on the severity of it. And we can go to the next slide and I'll show you the districts themselves. So District 4 and 3 are a little more heavily concentrated, so they're a little smaller. Obviously, 2 is a lot more sparse. 1 is getting a lot busier though.
Why is that, Lieutenant?
With increased businesses, more housing going in, it just seems to be a spot that's really picked up for us. So District 1, north of Saginaw to Eaton Highway, east to Crates, and then north of the Grand River. That's District 1. This is just showing us our hot spots. So 964 unique locations means that we've responded to 964 different locations within that district. Now that could be traffic stops as well, because as you can see, our top 5 calls is traffic stops. This just gives us a hot spot of the top, dozen or so areas. Nothing Too big really stands out here. District 2 is south of Saginaw, east of Crates, and anything south of 496. Heavy call volume around Saginaw, but that's as expected. There's nothing really out of the ordinary for this one. District 3, much of the same. Retail locations are going to be our most frequent. And sometimes you'll see a heavier concentration in an apartment complex. This is only picking up certain address points, but you have a bunch of apartments within those.
So Preston, the far right street, what is that street?
Which one?
The far right street that's got the three,
Up all through the right-hand side?
yeah,
That should be Waverly.
okay.
Yep. So Waverly, St. Joe, Waverly, Saginaw, probably accidents would be a big one there. Traffic stops. So when we call our traffic stops out, we could stop something on Waverly between Saginaw and St. Joe, but we might call out the nearest intersection. So that's probably what you're seeing for each of those intersections, accidents and traffic stops. And then just above 496 is Home Depot. So District 4, that's Crates, Grand River, the actual river, Saginaw and Waverly. That's our little pocket. Lansing Mall. So we have a higher frequency of calls because we're going down to one address, right? We do the Lansing Mall, but there's how many businesses within that Lansing Mall. It is more densely populated. You have Village Green and Wood Park in there. You spread that among all the apartments. We're going to be visiting that a little more frequently. UDAs, that was a nice little problem. Still is. In 2023, we had 107. This in 24, 134. Some of these are attempts. So we just recently changed our coding to where we could have attempt UDAs versus actual thefts of vehicles. So people would have vehicles smashed, but not their vehicles actually taken. So there might be a few thefts in there, and they tend to happen throughout little spurts. Basically, it'd be nothing for some mornings us to get 12 calls for UDAs. So the time of day shows morning time is really high, but that's just when people were reporting them. In our report system, we can go back and give a time frame of when they were actually believed to have occurred, and then we can enforce accordingly.
So if, I know people say their car was broken into and it wasn't broken into, the door was open because it was unlocked. But how do you categorize that? Is that?
Those ones are larcenies.
Okay.
Larceny from auto. So
Okay.
if it was unlocked, something was stolen from it, that's a larceny from auto. That's separate. A back window smashed out of a Kia, that's an attempt UDA.
Okay.
Especially when we have other ones around where maybe a Kia was taken.
Are the Kia vehicles still kind of the one that's being
Yeah, Hyundai's,
stolen or?
there's a handful of
damaged?
those too. Yeah. And we have caught suspects. Unfortunately, sometimes it's a catch and release for a little bit. A lot of juveniles involved, a lot of the same ones. We get them locked up for a bit and our numbers go down. So we'll see where we're at with that this summer.
So if these vehicles are stolen, what's the likelihood of them being recovered or discovered?
Pretty high. We find them, we go back and forth with Lansing. We'll find ours in Lansing. We'll find Lansing's in our area. It's a game. They go back and forth and.
So just joyriding, you think?
A lot of times we are able to process the vehicles though. So when Lansing finds one of ours, we will go out there and process the scene to try to obtain evidence. We have been successful in some. It does help identify some of the suspects.
Are a lot of these in like apartment,
Yes.
open parking lots?
Yes. It's volume, right? So Plumtree, even during the day, we got hit hard, Planet Fitness, Target, just a very rich environment. You know, the higher concentration of vehicles, the easier it is. It's just a numbers game.
So I've seen in some parking lots, these boom cameras, and they've got a flashing blue light on them. It's not because they're having a daily special or anything like that, but,
Yeah. Myers security has increased dramatically. License plate readers are huge. They're a massive help. That's something we've got on the books to look into and have been for a while. We can, once we get license plate readers, we can share and have access to any of them in the state that share with us.
right.
And beyond. So that's a whole nother thing we'll be looking at in the near future.
Preston, there was some drag racing that I know took place last year. I think I talked to Manager Reed on a couple of cases over by Home Depot. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's still going on, but I know I'm
No.
sure everybody read about the story in Lansing.
Yeah, the minute we obtained permission from the owners of the actual parking lot to trespass people, we took care of that problem pretty quick.
Yeah, that was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yes, 2 years ago. Mhm. But since then, we have not had a problem.
Good.
Occasionally, we'll get called down to Sanders and Pearson for that, but even that hasn't been as frequent.
That's good.
Well, the road that leads to our recycling plant.
That's the one, Sanders and Pearson. Yep.
That's a perennial issue, and you can't see the pavement for all the
Yeah.
tire marks.
Yeah.
And to your knowledge, is that still going on?
Not as frequent. No,
Okay.
the difficult thing becomes is, so we show up, they all take off. What do we chase for? We have to be careful about what we pursue for and what we don't and what's worth it. So we take them as they come, but they seem
Yeah.
to be a little
Kind of a cat and
little
mouse.
less frequent. Yeah. So retail frauds, this is not all of the retail frauds. These are the most common stores. It's not because they're terrible or anything. These are the ones that actually have loss prevention. There are other stores that don't keep track of it. I don't have my numbers from 2023 for retail frauds. Actually, I might have them. No, I don't have, it's slightly up, I think maybe by 100 or so calls. These stores will also call into dispatch themselves if there's no need for police to respond. Maybe they have a suspect, they just need to get a report generated, so it saves on our end. So that's not, these are just the calls that we respond to. Nothing really out of the ordinary for us with this one. We did conduct a retail fraud sting, if you will, in December. And we were quite successful with that one. It seemed to be the best time to do it. And I think we ended up with 12 arrests and some pretty good felony warrants out of it. We got a firearm off of somebody as well. So it was pretty successful.
Preston, but you said that these measures that like Myers taking their parking lot, do you see that?
Yeah, I would have to
Pressing
go back
this?
and look at Meyer. They were in the middle of their renovations. It was a little more difficult, but at least outside the ability to, maybe they're still committed as frequently, but being able to apprehend has been a lot easier. We find the suspect vehicle, it's easier to track them down. We know where they're headed or at least where they're from. So it's been a lot more helpful.
Are the other retailers on this list, are they putting in those kinds of measures?
Lowe's has one. There are other places that would likely go in with us if we were able to do that.
Okay,
So that's something we're looking into as well.
great.
I think it'll catch on even more. This is kind of what helped us respond to our retail frauds and when to time our operation that we had. So time of day, middle of the day, pretty busy. And also that's when loss prevention is working. So go figure. This is a big one that was an issue last year, not so much this year.
Really?
Yay.
Travelodge, I mean, those are, okay, so to give it some perspective, 2023, we responded to 202 calls at Travelodge. Red Roof was 153 last year. Ramada was 63. The Comfort Inn last year was 50. They didn't even make, the board. So I think just with a little bit of our efforts, we do have some grant funding that we use to enforce specifically around hotel areas. And between that and we've had a lot of help from managers that work there. We have a good relationship with them, so they're very helpful to us. And I think that's helped really drop these numbers to where it's really manageable.
This is great news,
Mhm.
because those numbers were
Absolutely.
Yeah.
horrible.
Yep.
But we can still see where our problem children are,
Mhm.
you know, by this graph.
Yeah. So child predator stings, this is something we've done in conjunction with Lansing Police Department. We have joint operations, so we'll go back and forth. These numbers you see here are just the numbers for 2024. This has gone back a couple of years now. Our detective bureau heads that up, so Detective Campbell, he's the one that puts everything together. LPD's Violent Crimes Initiative, they work with us as well, so obviously it's been something that has been pretty successful.
Preston, can you elaborate a little bit more on the 3 illegal immigrants and the ICE detainers? I'm a little unsure, unclear exactly what your role is.
So with that, it's just a process of, if we have someone we apprehend, we run them through the system, find out if there's warrants, what's going on. Sometimes it'll pop up that they're an illegal immigrant or something, and we just turn it over to immigration and go from there.
If they don't have any identification,
We have yet to find that problem.
really?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay,
Well, but there's only 3, so.
right.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Is that the number, did it increase or decrease?
same.
About the same
Mhm.
last year?
Yep.
Previous year?
Yeah. Traffic crashes, they are up slightly, and I'll show you on the next slide exactly where they're at. But this is just kind of essentially a heat map of where our biggest issues are. Mostly intersections. So we do have a couple fatals from last year. We do tend to stay pretty low with that, which is good. 0 would be better. You can see the last 3 years, we're in that 1,100 range. Nothing, I would say, really out of the ordinary. The alcohol and drugs is, again, probably a little higher just based on the way certain things are tracked that we're trying to do better on. Our deers, pretty much the same. The deer won't listen, so it's just what it is.
I just have to comment on that is, I see that the heat signature there is the propensity of these accidents are along the Saginaw corridor from the I-96 eastward.
For the car deers or for the just actual accidents in general?
Yeah, accidents in general,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that, the state transportation department, I'm sure they recognize that, but there'd be some sort of a strategic plan to try to address that, through, change in traffic patterns and the roadway, changes to the roadway like they're contemplating and doing with the boulevard situation west of I-96, because obviously that's where the propensity of the accidents are on that corridor. So and yet the attention is going to be towards the west of I-96 there in the Delta Crossings area. So
This helps with our enforcement with our OHSP grants as well. We can look at them, and when we run our reports, our accident reports, we can actually look it up by maybe what caused the accident. So we try to target certain areas, specifically Saginaw.
that's an interesting point. Would it not necessarily just be speed, but it could be the number of ingresses, egresses and things like that? Is that how you break it down?
People not properly using lanes that they're for. The center turn lane is not a center turn lane.
A merge
It's
lane.
left, it's not a merge lane, it's left turn only. So a lot of it is just people doing what they're supposed to.
Yeah.
We can't control that.
Right.
And when it's busy and if everybody's in a rush, so.
Preston, I'm seeing increasing numbers of people who use the center lane on Michigan Avenue, for example, where we have 3 lanes for a passing lane.
Yeah.
I get passed frequently.
Mhm.
as I'm slowing to turn into my
Yeah.
driveway or into my subdivision. They're using them as passing lanes. Is that actually a tickable?
Oh, yes, improper lane use, improper passing. Yeah, however, there's a few options there.
Okay.
Solid lines.
I have,
Like the two solid lines on
Yeah.
here that.
Yeah, they do it all. the
some of
time.
it comes down to our ability to enforce, with our recruits that we have and, not having
Well,
not having everyone. I think sometimes it's up to us to just help correct behavior.
right, it's just an increased issue.
Yes.
It's not, and you gotta be in the right place at the right time to catch it.
Yeah.
It's not like they're it's gonna happen, but I will wish them ill, okay?
Deputy Travis, okay.
Citizens arrest.
So this is just a correlation of traffic stops to actual citations written. Citations written also includes traffic accidents. So our ratio to traffic stops to citations issued on traffic stops is actually lower. With traffic citations, we tend to issue tickets to anybody involved in a two-party accident that's at fault. That's Deputy Travis is our waymaster. He's maintained pretty significant numbers while training recruits and taking district calls. So kudos to him on keeping up the good work and maintaining the same pace.
Thank you for Delta Township for paying for the Waymaster.
So this is Roscoe. Deputy Studley is Roscoe's handler. Roscoe is our bomb dog. We have used him recently on some threats. This is just a breakdown of what Roscoe has been used for the year. Pretty even among everything. And this is Deputy Studley. We've actually moved her to the 2-2 shift, so I'm sure his activity is going to increase. She was on day shift for a while, and your mornings tend to be a little slower.
I've met Roscoe.
This is Tank, Sergeant Turner's dog. He's probably used the most frequently on traffic stops, as you can see. Just the other night, I think on 2 separate stops, we had a stop that resulted in 14 grams of meth and 3.9. Both were charged with possession with intent to deliver. So Tank's earning his keep.
Yeah.
AVI is something big for us, active violence incidents. We have 4 that help put on trainings. We've actually worked with a lot of the businesses up here in the schools throughout the county. And we basically help train employees and students how to respond to an AVI with medical care, or maybe tips on how to be as safe as possible in these situations. It's something that's not going away, so the more prepared people are, the better we can be. This is just a snapshot of our annual scenarios. This is conducted throughout the Tri-County area with the Tri-County agencies. So something we do every year just to help keep us sharp. Drones have been a new thing for us. We have 9 licensed pilots now. We had 19, I guess you would say, missions. These range from accident reconstruction, catching a suspect that's fleeing, going over a homicide scene. So of the 19 times that we used the drone, we've been successful on missions 10 times. And I imagine that number will increase as we get more familiar with how to use this new tool. It's been very helpful for us. National Night Out, we're going to skip the promo video. This is something that's been very big for over the last couple of years. It's only getting bigger. As a result, we're going to be switching to Mount Hope Park to accommodate all of the growth that we've had with this. So we're looking forward to this year and see how this plays out. And as long as we have good weather, I think we'll be all right. The cop car, another one we conducted. We've worked with St. Gerard for years on this. We typically hit Walmart and Kroger and have a lot of success filling those cop cars. I just want to end with a handful of case highlights and we'll be done with this. So early on, K Jewelers had subjects trying to smash out their display cases with sledgehammers. They did not steal anything there, but they did hit up a kiosk on their way out. Through our investigation, we found a stolen Jeep that was ditched not too far from there. We were able to kind of backtrack and find some suspects. So our detective bureau did a good job tracking this down. They linked them to some other cases in the tri-state area. So it was a big group, organized group. They were apprehended earlier this year. Bridgewater stabbing. This is something we had in the parking lot. A stabbing between two people that got into an argument. The suspect took off. We were able to track him down into an apartment complex. We got it surrounded very quickly, and we were able to actually communicate with the suspect and take him into custody without issue. So just another big one where just working together worked out really well for us. And then just a head scratcher. So this car started over in Zabzone's parking lot and launched themselves across Elmwood into IPOC. Sergeant Tietzort was the first one on scene and made contact with the suspect. He said he was armed, said he had a bomb, had something in his hand. It was dark. Obviously, you can't tell. You don't want to get so close. Sergeant Tietzort and deputy had the opportunity to go hands-on to secure him. During the struggle, the suspect actually got a hold of the deputy's rifle. Sergeant Tietzort was able to quickly eject the magazine and the round, making the rifle obsolete at the time. So a very good outcome for a very potentially dangerous situation. There's a lot more cases that I could talk about, but these are just some highlights. So with that, I'm done with my report, and on a just personal note, I want to thank everybody for all the support you've given us and shown us throughout. And hopefully everyone else agrees with us tomorrow night. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Any questions?
Just a comment on your last slide there. I just had lunch at that place this last week.
No,
It's still not completely repaired. So, I mean, these things have major implications for our residents, whether it's a business or, you know, just a residential homeowner. So, you know, the destructive results of these things, you know, go way beyond just the apprehension and conviction of the actual criminal. So thank you.
Thank you.
Officer, and all of your
Thank you, Preston.
colleagues for your
Thank you.
Thank you,
dedication.
Preston, for all
Appreciate
that
it.
you do. Appreciate you. Okay, we are now on to public comments. Are there any public comments? Nobody want to speak?
They wanna go home.
Okay. Is there anything else before the board? If not, this meeting is adjourned.